Okay, so this article that we're going to read through and annotate together is titled, Is Conservationist Muir Still Important? And this title here, in another way of saying it, is John Muir, the environmentalist, still relevant or should he get canceled? So if you've heard about cancel culture, like it's basically saying like, all right, you did all of this work, but like we're over you at this point. We're going to read through it together. And just so you know, John Muir is in this picture standing in Yosemite or atop of Yosemite Valley at Glacier Point. Here's Yosemite Waterfall behind him. And this man here is famous president. Does anybody know? Teddy Roosevelt, who also was a outdoorsman enthusiast, aka hunter, just so you know. All right, moving on. John Muir is the godfather of environmentalism, the movement to protect nature. He's a larger-than-life figure who helped establish the national park system through his writings of solo hikes in California's wilderness. As the first president of the Sierra Club, Muir shaped ideas about how wilderness should be thought of, protected, and managed. But now some critics argue that he's wrong. They claim that the world has changed so much in 100 years since he died that Muir is no longer important. Christensen is a historian with UCLA's Institute of Environment and Sustainability. He said Muir's ideas are just not useful anymore. So this sentence right here, they claim all the way to no longer important, that's the thesis. The whole point of this article is, y'all, it's been 100 years, he's not relevant anymore. The rest is going to give you some evidence to decide whether or not you agree or disagree. A huge passion for nature. Christensen and others see Muir's beliefs as outdated. The 21st century has new environmental challenges, they say. Muir could not have imagined population growth, city sprawl, or climate change. The debate boils down to Muir's primary idea, that wilderness should be left undisturbed so people can occasionally experience pure nature. That idea helped shape a century of conservation. It made sure that there would be unspoiled wilderness for new generations. All right, so let's pause here for a second. First, there's some evidence that says that Muir isn't relevant anymore because he didn't know about climate change, population growth, or why cities would be important. So his idea of nature isn't relevant right now. The other part is that people can occasionally experience pure nature. So this idea that nature is somewhere else, that nature is something that you go to, is one of Muir's ideas that doesn't really resonate with people nowadays who believe that nature is everywhere. Okay. He had a huge passion for nature, such as we should all cherish in our hearts, said Mary Ellen Hannibal. She is an author and Muir fan. He holds up an ideal of experiencing nature firsthand. Environmentalism, in some ways, has moved beyond John Muir, said Noah Greenwald of the Center for Biological Diversity. But Greenwald said Muir was at the forefront of the notion of setting aside portions of nature. To Christensen and others, however, Muir's notions give the wrong idea. Sending people to wilderness sites such as Yosemite sends the message that only awe-inspiring parks are worth saving and neglects smaller city spaces. Critics also say Muir's vision of wilderness is rooted in luxury. It assumes that everyone will have the free time of the rich upper class to visit the wilderness. So here's some ideas that I highlighted here, underlined. The first idea is that Muir was one of the first people to put a fence around green space and call it nature. He set it aside for protection. However, the little smaller city spaces where most of the population lives, he didn't care for and didn't consider that nature. He also thought of nature as something that, like, you have to have free time to go to. Like, working people don't have free time to go to the mountains. And so that idea is rooted in luxury. Make more city parks. Critics against his idea of backpacking skiing or rock climbing through the Sierra Mountains. Critics argue against his idea of backpacking skiing or rock climbing through the Sierra Mountains. Instead, they say Californians would benefit more from city parks and additional roads and trails in wildlands. Nature exists in many forms, they say. Untouched wilderness is only one. I'm going to pause right here. Have you ever been backpacking? Because that costs money. Same with skiing or rock climbing. If you have all of the gear, it can cost you thousands of dollars to do all three of those. So that idea of going to wilderness and doing these things requires money. And that's the dominant narrative of environmentalism. So we need to change that to include more people. Some people blame Muir for starting a certain type of environmentalism that seemed to be for rich white people. The Sierra Club, which Muir helped found, is struggling to connect with California's non-white population, particularly Latinos. That's the case even though survey shows Latinos as among the most devoted environmentalists in the state. What? Yeah. And I'll show you that survey in a bit. Latinos are expected to become a majority in California by 2050. A strong and multiracial Sierra Club membership in California is important to the group. It could influence political decisions in California about conservation and raise money to support environmental education. Yet Christensen says that the conservation movement reflects the ideas of John Muir and its influence on certain demographics, older and white, and that's the problem. And it's a huge problem still. Like, I know so many students are like, I don't care about the environment. I don't care about environmentalism. And it's because they haven't been included in the narrative of environmentalism. The narrative being like, it's something that you go do, it's something that you go see, not, hey, it's your entire environment, buildings, streets, like everything around you. DJ Waldy, an author and expert on Southern California culture, agrees with him. We have to reimagine our relationships with nature to accommodate modern, increasingly diverse communities, Waldy said. They see the world differently than white Anglo-Saxon Protestants like Muir did in the late 19th century. For many communities of color, nature of great significance isn't out there in distant, charismatic Sierra peaks. It's in urban parks, it's in local mountains, and along local rivers, and under the fingertips in the stuff they grow in their own backyards, he said. So pausing there again, for the majority of people, wilderness is something that you see in movies. Like you have to go to Montana, and that's just not the case. It's the dominant narrative, but it's not the truth. Nature is in our own backyards. If we have backyards, if we're not, you can still, just outside your window. I know you have a window somewhere. Just outside your window, that's nature. And sometimes people bring nature into their home. So maybe nature is in your home. Now, one stain on Muir's past is hard to get past. His dislike for California's Native Americans, a group he claimed had no place in the Sierra Wilderness. Laura Pulido, professor in USC's Department of American Studies and Ethnicity, said Muir's prejudice should be understood as being part of his time. It's essential that we try to understand John Muir in all of his complexity. He was a man of his times who actively worked to disgrace California Indians by taking their lands. She added, but he also launched the environmental movement, which is no small thing. In Hannibal's view, what counts is the number of acres protected. So Hannibal was a Muir fan. As a non-Muir fan, I'm saying cancel Muir. But what do you think? Is it enough that he protected thousands of acres of land for you to still appreciate him? Or are you like, I mean, if you're going to take someone's lands, nobody's perfect, right? Racist old white guy, let's forgive him, but still appreciate him. What do you think?